Hey everyone, thanks for coming to our talk. Luigi and I are from Rive. We're gonna be giving you a bit of intro into what Rive is, and then we're gonna invite Marty Romances from Territory Studio. He's one of the co-founders to talk about how they're using Rive. So yeah, quick intro on us. I'm Guido. I'm my background is in design, and I'm one of the two co-founders of Rive. And Luigi.
Yeah, hey, my name is Luigi. I'm Guido's twin, and we decided pretty early on that we were going to split up. He was going to do design, I was going to do engineering. We didn't realize at 17 how important of a decision that was, and it's kind of formed the rest of our career. We've always worked together as designer and developer, and have worked on some pretty interesting, pretty heavy motion graphics projects that always required a lot of design and finesse, and we never shied away from putting in the effort into the engineering to make sure that it was exactly as a designer wanted it to function and feel. And that's really what Rive is all about.
Yeah, so Luigi and I, started working as a designer dev duo some 25 years ago. We worked with companies like Microsoft on some of the first Xbox 360 third-party apps like Netflix and HBO. MLB was a customer, Red Bull. We worked with 9/11 Memorial and built their kiosks and a lot of their web presences. And anyway, the point in sharing all this is that there were always companies that cared a lot about their brand and having like a really unique UI and graphics, and not using cookie cutter kind of components. And in doing that, we realized that like there's this problem of like designers having to figure out, and developers actually having to figure out how to hard code these graphics that are really custom. So the designer comes up with like these ideas and mock-ups and prototypes, and the engineer has to figure out, how am I actually gonna build this and make it work?
I used to get red lines, and not just red lines, I get motion red lines, which are basically red lines built in After Effects to show how the easing curves and motion from one state to another would work. And then my team would have to hard code them, rewrite them. And anytime that Guido's team would want to change them, we'd have to go and iterate on that. They'd have to rebuild a bunch of mock-ups. And basically, it completely killed the iterative cycle.
So that's what Rive is all about. And we're gonna play a quick video here to give you a feel for it, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about it.
Rive helps you create interactive, animated graphics that are ready to ship to apps, websites, and games. They're not mock-ups, prototypes, or videos. They're graphics that can change state at any moment with rich visuals and animation.
All right, so as you can see up on the screen, as you heard in the video, Rive helps you build, specifically for this conference, we're here to talk about our integration with Unreal and how you can build UI and graphics for games that are not mockups, they're not prototypes. Designers can build graphics that are functional and can be connected to data. You can see here, that's our editor, where the designer, uses all their design and animation skills to build something that really runs, not a mockup, not a prototype, not a video. And it can have like all this interactivity built into it, a lot of motion and animation. So they're using all the skills that they already know, but they're building something that can actually ship and doesn't have to be rewritten in code. And that same graphic, runs in Unreal, it runs in Unity, it runs in your custom game engine. You can load it on your website. You can load it on an iOS app, an Android. You saw in the initial video, you might have seen Duolingo. They use Rive for all of their characters and all of their graphics in their app that are interactive and animated. And so it's just a new way to help designers and devs work together and build graphics that are super custom and don't have to be hard coded across different platforms.
And that's where the abstraction layer that allows for that is that we have sort of a really simple API that exposes inputs that drive the state of the app. And so you change as an engineer, you get access to those inputs, you can see them, you can open up our editor and see them directly and manipulate them directly, but you can also then query them through the API, build up your contract, and change those at runtime and know that everything will just work and not have to worry about the specifics of where certain pixels lie, where certain animations are. Even if certain animations are complete or not, you can get events out of the system if there are things, synchronization points that are important to you. But apart from that, the contract is what you define, and that abstraction is up to you to make sure that it's as divorced as possible from the UI itself, such that your designers can keep iterating on it and you can get started on actually building the business rules and the logic of your app sooner.
So real quick before we move on from this, customers are using Rive for apps. We talked about games. We talked video game menus. You saw some HMI car displays. We're working with some really cool car companies that are building, their configurators with Rive. They're building the UI of the actual car cluster in Rive. They're building their apps, with really custom start buttons that match the car interface.
Companion apps.
Companion apps. So we really think this is a problem that affects all software. Like the way that graphics are built and UI is built for all software needs to be better. And we think that Rive is the solution. So quick recap on what Rive is. What you're seeing here is the editor. So that is a design tool, kind of like, Figma or Illustrator or Sketch with a design mode. And then there's an animate mode that's a little bit like After Effects or Cinema 4D. So you learn all the tools that you already know as a designer. It's friendly to a designer. It's not like a game engine that feels more like a development tool. And then we have, let me go to the next slide here to show you.
We have a custom format that basically the editor writes to. That custom format is intentionally built for this editor. So it's not something like a markup language that was designed for an engineer to interface with. It's a language that the editor intimately understands and allows for a lot of customization and easy development and iteration on our side. So fundamentally, what this allows for is a complete pipeline. And the final piece is the runtime. And that's what actually consumes what the editor spits out, which is another format. And the runtime can consume that and display that in whatever engine, app, vehicle, fridge, anything you want to run on. And that whole pipeline is completely open sourced. The formats, the runtime, the renderer, we had to build a custom renderer to allow for performance that we want with these kinds of, we want it to unencumber and not inhibit a designer. And all the vector graphics engines that we found out there didn't allow for the amount of expression and state changes that we required. So we had to build something custom there too that is completely cross-platform, easy to bring to game engines, easy to bring to apps, easy to bring anywhere. And that's really the vision that's very different from anyone else who's tried to tackle this before, is that we're going really wholeheartedly for that whole pipeline.
Yeah, so to recap, the format, the runtime, the render, a lot of tech, took a lot of years to build. We didn't do like, Flash and Scaleform. Scaleform tried to build a runtime for an existing editor and an existing format, or we're not trying to take HTML and like shoehorn it into a game engine. We really looked at it wholeheartedly. New format, specifically built to change state every frame. Runtime that can run those graphics anywhere. You can empower your designers who nowadays, most designers, they're building graphics for software. No designer is really building anything to be printed. 99% of what a designer is going to build is going to actually run. And so that runtime enables that design that the designer built to run on any platform. And then the renderer is new tech that also took 2.5 years in the making to accelerate vector graphics on the GPU, something that hasn't been possible to do in the past at the performance that we're doing and with the level of features that we're supporting. You can accelerate, in Unreal, scalable vector graphics without, 120 frames per second without affecting your game's performance.
Yeah, and just to clarify on the open source, everything right of the editor is MIT licensed. So you can use any of that and completely freely put it in anything
you ship in your game, app, project is yours. You own it. Doesn't phone home. It's not connected to our servers or anything like that. The editor is how we monetize, even though it has a very permissive free plan. You can, as an individual, use it for free. We offer paid plans for enterprises, security, and team collaboration. All right. So, by the way, the timer isn't working up here. I don't know if we can get that started. So just a recap on the benefits of this new way of building graphics for software is that there's no hard coding. So, in the past, I built something and then I had to hand it over to Luigi's team to figure out, how are we going to make this run on the web? And then if we want to run it on an iOS or an Android app, he's got to figure out how we're going to code it in Swift and Kotlin, and then it's got to run in Unreal. You're going to have to code it in C++. All of that hard coding of graphics goes away, and it gives you data points to connect to it with an API. You empower your designers to actually build functional graphics, and you get rid of that duplicated work where typically a designer has to do all this work to build something, and then an engineer has to figure out how to rebuild it in code. By virtue of that, you can have really fast iteration because you empower your designers to iterate on the graphics rather than having to open up support tickets to, hey, tweak this timing, rebuild this part because it's not working the way we thought it should. You get really fast performance. What you see in our editor is running the exact same runtime and renderer that runs in the final product. So your designers are aware that what they're building, like the performance implications that it's going to have. You're not locked into any game engine or app engine. So what you build in Rive, you can use it as a UI layer in Unreal, or you can use it in another game engine, or you can use it in an app. You can learn a skill that you can bring with you as a designer to any tool, not just one engine. And the final piece is we have a community on our website that we like to call out. You can find a ton of files and stuff that artists are building. There's thousands of them. There's because the editor is online. There's like a way to share files on the community, and you can open them up and see how people are building things. And we think it's a really great resource. All right, so that's Rive, and we're gonna hand it over to Marty from Territory Studios to tell you about some of the awesome work they do. We talked about games and apps and software, and there's other applications for Rive that apply to film and vehicles, and we're going to hand it over to Marty to chat about that.
And we'll stick around for questions for later too.
Yeah, Marty.
Thank you. Hey everyone. Thanks guys. I mean, what a great product they've been building. We love it, and I want to introduce myself. My name is Marty Romances, co-founder and creative director at Territory Studio. Territory started 14 years ago, and basically we've been expanding since, not only in different areas. We have London, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Barcelona. We are over 220 people, and I want to talk a little bit about what we do and why this is Rive is important to what we do. I like to show this slide always because I think Territory always exists within these three main pillars. We use design to reveal stories, to tell stories in different industries that we work on that I'm going to show you today. And we always do it with technology. Sometimes we support technology and invent technologies that don't exist quite yet. How we do that, oh, it's a bit wonky. We do that because we live in between Hollywood and Silicon Valley in a way. We are working on all of this technology that exists in films, in these games, things that don't need to work. They just need to show the idea. We work in a lot of films that you will recognize, and I'll show you some of these, and you'll understand why I'm talking about technology in films and games. But we also work on real products for real brands, like Guido was saying, automotive, aerospace, and whatnot. Things that need to be functional, things that need to be have a real utility and real user experience logics behind it. That's when we had to start transitioning from pre-rendered solutions that we were usually using in films and sometimes in games as well, into a more real-time, functional way to build things. Because of that, we sit in between this world of fantastical walls that mean different things to different directors. They have different styles. We have to constantly be looking into reinventing something new for this director. The graphics that we do for Dune are not going to be the same graphics that we do for Space Jam or Blade Runner. Each one has its own style. On the right side, as you can see, lots of digital product, from automotive to wearables to apps for all sorts of industries. That's where Rive starts to become very, very interesting to us, because we're using real-time engines and all sorts of development pipelines to create those. So I think it's important that we live in between those two and that we don't narrow ourselves too close into one, because people that only do UI for cars for 15 years end up just doing the same. They narrow their vision. For us to be able to play in fantastical worlds of Star Wars and Avengers and whatnot might bring us certain ideas that could apply to a real product. We have a slightly wider field of view in that sense. And we think that these things are influencing technology. Who doesn't remember like Minority Report, right? Tom Cruise waving his hands, and now we have headsets and augmented reality and things that are going in that direction. We like to think that all of these visual prototypes that we've been doing for 14 years in the films might be somehow influencing some of the new technologies and the new ways that as humans we interact with technology. I'm going to show two reels at once. On the left, you will see our film work. On the right, you will see some of the digital product work. And then we take it from there. I don't know if there's audio here, but if not, I'm going to speak. Oh, there's only one playing. There you go.
I mystify, don't be filtered. I mystify.
But now I'll rise above you.
All right. So now, thank you. Now you get to see the common denominator is some sort of an interface technologies that exist in these walls and in Hollywood, and also the interfaces that exist in digital products. The UI or these graphics that we do for films start on set when we are, we're shooting actors. The talent is they have these interfaces in front of them. They are not green screens. This is the Quinjet for Avengers, for example, right? And these are mainly just to help the story building, but also to engage this talent that needs to believe where they are and enhance their performance. This is where they end up, as you can see them. And I'm gonna tell you why it's important for us to be able to quickly, for our designers, to create those interactive on set rather than just some looping screens. This is another good example. Infinity War, the Guardians of the Galaxy have a new spaceship. And I want to just show something that I always find very funny. These screens here, these screens are screens that we all have in our phone, in our pockets. So basically, our graphics go into iPads, iPhones, or whatever it is that can be embedded inside of a 3D printed frame that we're building with the art department. And then, this is kind of what ends up being on set. Sometimes even you can see the little iPhone button there. We just 3D print frames in order to disguise some of these small details. These were all in every single door of the spaceship. Why is this important? Well, mainly because if we're using devices that have touchscreens, we should be able to give these actors something more than just a looping video. That's when Rive, for us, is very exciting, because we can start having things like these. There are, having an event, and when these are different screens that I'm going to show you on set. And when they touch or they press a certain button, then we can trigger a reaction. And this, again, it just further enhances this performance on these actors and actresses that are on set. Those are all going, similar to what I showed you for Avengers, they are all going into these devices and 3D printed devices that end up on set. And they are all iPads or iPhones. And the beauty about on set is that the director of photography can get the lens where they want it. This is emitting some light. This can get like out of focus, creating a nice, more cinematography, sort of a cinematic, more look and feel. But most importantly is that these actors can really touch these screens, and the light from the screens are getting into their fingers or hands. That's why this is extremely important for us instead of having green screens. And you can see here some of these. Oh, this is playing the whole thing. Okay, this shouldn't play the whole thing, but you get it. You get the point. It looks better. It looks better when it's there. How Territory uses Rive? Well, I'm going to show you very quickly with that in mind, with this idea of us going to sets, playing with screens and graphics that are interactive with the whole art department. We can do things like this, where we can see that just like this is us testing it, right, for different projects. We can even like put a WhatsApp, and the actor doesn't need to type the right thing. We can just program with Rive that this is the right message that they are going to write, instead of having to worry and do another take because this actor didn't do the right thing. Different touch points, different actions. It could be on laptops as well. Here you can see this test for like sort of a Mission Impossible. No matter what you type, you're going to be typing the right code. So yeah, Ex Machina, if you've seen it, we use that quite a lot. You will see it here very, very clearly. No matter what you type, it's gonna be the correct, and that's thanks to Rive and thanks to our designers to be able to bring it in the software, just to create these very quick interactions. You will see here as well how we did it with. Well, here is very obvious that it's not typing top secret global operation. Those are very small examples that we wanted to show today, because we think that even Rive is also important for the film industry in this case, for what we do. And as I was saying, we're moving a lot from what we do in films into real products. For the last 7 years, we've been working with quite a lot of automotive clients. A big one is General Motors. We do a lot of these graphics for Cadillac, for Chevrolet, GMC. We also work with lots of other brands, but I want to talk about this one specifically because it's important to have a solution that gives us functionality on the go for prototyping, for data capture. These are things that basically are in cars and the roads, have people's life in their hands in a way. But the interesting part is that these screens are getting so large that all of these sort of buttons and levers and things that we're used to touch in our dashboards are gone. So the only way for us to solution what we still need these machines to be doing is through doing it through touchscreen. And that's while testing with real-time solutions, testing these functionalities are key. And also we believe that these cars, especially with the EVs, they are soulless. The cars lost the engine, the vibration, the sounds. So the best way for a human to connect with that machine is that interface, are those screens. That's why we believe that the HMI in these new products is of paramount importance for the brands to connect with the user. And at the end of the day, what we're doing here is we're telling a story to anyone who drives this car, to understand, like a broader audience, to understand when it needs to be charged or how you do certain things. This is the same thing that we do with the films. In the films, we tell to a broader audience how these guys are going to go from A to B by showing a line that goes from A to B. That's universal language. So for us, design is a universal language to tell a story. As I was saying, is always infused by technology, and technology is a key component of what we do. All of this that you see here done for Cadillac, there are things that have big pipelines behind, big engineering teams. The nice thing with Rive is that, again, we don't need to worry about how this is being implemented. It's so accessible to designers, but also is so friendly to any engineering pipeline that this needs to go to. And we always look at this in a way that can be as parametric, as modular as possible. This is the same system applied to the Escalade. And as I was saying, the nice thing about doing things in a parametric way for our clients is that they can use it in many different trims, in many different cars, without having to reinvent the wheel. So, yeah. Now, as I was saying, this is for another project that we did with Cadillac, the Lyric, which is now out on the road, and it's nice to see these things sort of a full circle. As I was saying, the screens kept getting larger until they didn't. I want to show you a project today that is also very important to what we're discussing today here, which is very focused on graphics that run on real time. These screens kept getting larger, but someone said, well, and this someone is Audi, someone said, we don't necessarily need the screens. And when we don't have screens, we have a lot of real estate in front of us. Real estate that is freed up by all of these chipsets and computers and screens that we have in the cockpits. What I'm going to show you now is a project that we did with Audi that is a real prototype that shows how the early foundation of an augmented reality, on-demand HMI could look like. What we're going to look at in here is a new concept of an interior that is basically augmented thanks to augmented reality glasses that will allow you to see information of your vehicle, will allow you to even do gestures to move your vehicle. But the most important part, because we prototype this working inside of the car, is that we can start calling out things only when we need them, showing everyone these real-time graphics. Even you don't know how to mount your bikes, we can do a tutorial. We can change the temperature only when you need the temperature widget. It doesn't need to be there all the time. We can show you navigation with maps that are also real-time, UI that is responsive, and we're talking about a lot of UI today, especially with Rive. That's why to us, having solutions as HMI solutions that can help adopt them into a real-time engine is extremely important. In this car, even when you go off-road and you get the steering wheel, we can still use augmented reality to make sure that you can see beyond the vehicle, make the vehicle transparent, and see if there are any obstacles in front of you. Even goes out of the car when you are mountain biking or skiing, since it's an autonomous car, can pick you up at the end of your ride, at the end of your ski trip, and whatnot. I'm showing you this because we've seen a lot of this Rive technology on screens, but again, this doesn't stop on screen, especially now that we're seeing augmented reality solutions getting finally a little bit more interesting. Oh gosh, this is also going to play the whole thing. Sorry, Keynote and PowerPoint sometimes doesn't work very nicely, but what I can do at least is try to show you this on a synchronized grid. Again, this is pretty much that video that we just saw. So I was gonna just highlight some specific areas. But back to how we do that, we always start with prototyping. We believe that the best way to do this type of projects is learning by doing, especially when you're looking at space that needs to be synchronized, space that is pretty new to everyone on how you interact. We run a lot of user testing, and that's why early prototyping is super important for us. And thanks to real-time solutions like what we're discussing today, we can be iterating constantly. You will see here some of these maps in 3D and the interfaces that we were outlining on top of it, as you can see on the top. Pretty compelling when we think about what we're discussing today. And again, we definitely learn by doing. This is our team testing with the Audi team. People were even thinking that some of the lines that we were overlaying on top of that cockpit were lights inside of the car, but they were not. It's like the tracking systems in certain headsets are getting very good to the point that they track to the millimeter. And we see what's coming from Meta. We see what's happening with this type of technology, and we're very excited about it. So yeah, it's the interplay of prototyping for a car, and this is something that really comes infused by what we've been doing when we, like, I don't know, 12 years ago, we were designing for the Iron Man heads-up display. Like, for us, seeing this being a real prototype now is what validates the story around how Hollywood really, and not only Hollywood, I think the world of games as well, can impact very heavily real life prototypes and real life products. So I know that this timer was all over the place, so I don't know how long I have, but I wanted to show you some of these examples, how we use Rive in the film industry, how we use them in these automotive and digital products. I think that is us, and we would love to see if there's some time for some questions, for the Rive co-founders or myself.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.